Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, the Philippine economy lost up to 118.5 billion pesos since 2023 because of corruption related to flood control projects, says the Finance Secretary. Ralph Recto adds it is also affecting investor confidence.
Apektado na yung investor confidence sa lahat ng external challenges. Dapat hindi natin dinadagdagan dito yan domestically.
Investors coming to grips with lingering issues over anomalous flood control projects. The Philippine peso hovers at its weakest in nearly a month, weighing on local equities now at 4-month lows. We'll hear some insights from Cristina Ulang, research head at First Metro Investment Corporation. And the Agriculture Department assures there will be no price hikes for rice as an import ban took effect on Monday. House committees collectively known as the House Infracom started their investigation into anomalous flood control projects, but lawmakers got off to a heated start. Senior Deputy Minority Leader Edgar Erice raised a motion to invite the heads of the 2025 Budget BICAM Committee, Ako Bicol Party List Representative Zaldico and former Senator Grace Poe. But some lawmakers registered their opposition.
I am objecting on the motion. Are they resource speakers or they are members of the House of Representatives?
Sabi nyo kanina, kahit sino masagasaan, wala tayong sasantuhin, kahit congressman, kahit senador. Under the name of Congressman Saldico, ang insertion sa BICAM as proponent siya is 13,803,693,000. And we do not want to invite him as a resource person.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Comsec, can you show this para lang sabihin di ako
Mr. Chair, with
nag-invento?
due courtesy.
Wait, I have the floor.
Yeah,
I have the floor.
Yeah, but
I have the floor.
No, Mr.
I
Chair.
have the floor.
Yeah, just to, on the
I
record.
have the floor.
Please. On the record, Mr. Chair.
I have the floor.
We did
Erice decided to defer the introduction of his motion, giving his staff time to determine if last year's budget insertions were redirected to ghost flood control projects. 5 of the top 15 flood control contractors were absent in yesterday's hearing. The Infracom has already issued subpoenas for them to appear in the next hearing. To ensure transparency, all members of the mega panel are given 5 days to submit a written disclosure if they harbor any conflict of interest. Senator Panfilo Lacson earlier claimed that at least 67 lawmakers served as contractors for their own infra projects. Meanwhile, former Bulacan 1st District Engineer Henry Alcantara took the blame for the substandard and ghost projects in Bulacan that earned the ire of President Marcos. Alcantara said he only relied on the documents submitted by his team. He also admitted to going to casinos, which is not allowed for government officials and employees.
Negligence on my part, inamin ko po may kakulangan ako dahil I did not personally go to it.
Na kayo po ay nagkakasino 3 times a month o a week?
2 to 3 times a month po.
2 to 3 times a month. Gano'n na po ninyo katagal ito ginagawa?
Started po mga 2020, mid-2023 po. May ID po silang binigay po sa akin na iba po yung name ko doon, Your Honor.
60 days. That is a deadline new Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon set for himself to reorganize the agency from its top officials down to the district engineers. This comes after President Bongbong Marcos ordered a cleanup of the agency. He also vowed to enforce strict contractor compliance and strengthen oversight to prevent irregularities. The new DPWH chief said he is considering scrapping the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Committee formed by former Department Secretary Manuel Bonoan, which was supposed to look into alleged anomalies involving the department's officials and staff. Meanwhile, the Ombudsman has formed a 13-member special panel to investigate alleged irregularities in flood control contracts. The body is authorized to subpoena documents, take testimonies, and even examine bank records with a mandate to pursue criminal and administrative cases where warranted. The Bureau of Customs has secured all 12 luxury cars linked to the Discaya family following a day-long hunt and a court-ordered search at St. Gerard Construction in Pasig City. The agency first found 2 vehicles listed in its search warrant, a 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser and a 2022 Maserati Levant Modena. 7 more were later surrendered at the compound, including a Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Mercedes-Benz, and Cadillac. The 3 remaining vehicles are undergoing repairs and will be turned over to Customs. All units are now sealed and are round-the-clock guarded by the Bureau and Philippine Coast Guard. During a Senate Blue Ribbon hearing on Monday, contractor Sara Discaya admitted to owning 28 luxury vehicles. The Customs said it still needs to verify if the vehicles were legally acquired and if proper taxes were paid under the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act.
Kung mapapakita naman nila na talagang sila ay buyers in good faith, doon naman kami pupunta upang doon namin kuhanin ang mga tamang dokumento. Kung wala naman po silang pangamba na ito ay smuggled talaga at sila nag-smuggle, mas makakabuti po sa kanila na isurrender yan.
For their part, the Discaya camp expressed surprise at the customs inspection. Spokesperson attorney Cornelio Samaniego insisted the vehicles were bought legally. He also said the family will comply with the BOC's documentation requirements within the 10-day deadline.
Wala ho kaming illegal na itinatago na yung mga sasakyan na nabanggit doon sa Senate hearing kahapon. Yan po ay dumaan sa tamang proseso. Binili po sa mga legitimate car dealers. 3 po yan. Ang sabi ng kliyente ko kanina sa telepono, binigyan daw sila ng 10 araw para mag-comply, para i-present nila yung mga dokumento ng sasakyan. We will comply po.
Finance Secretary Ralph Recto says corruption in the government's flood control projects may have cost the economy up to 118.5 billion pesos since 2023. Recto said the so-called ghost projects under the DPWH drained billions, slowed growth, and could have created as many as 266,000 jobs. While the GDP grew 5.5% in 2023 and 5.7% in 2024, Recto stressed that the numbers could have been stronger had the money been spent properly. Recto said beyond wasted funds, the controversy threatens to erode investor confidence.
May mga gera pa rin sa buong mundo. Meron tayong trade war, meron tayong geopolitical tensions with China. At hindi maganda na may ganitong problema pa rin sa ating bansa. So yung pa lang, apektado na yung investor confidence sa lahat ng external challenges. Dapat hindi natin dinadagdagan dito yan domestically. Kaya we support itong investigasyon na ginagawa ng Senado at posible ng isang independent commission ng executive.
Philippine peso hovers at its weakest in nearly a month, weighing on local equities. No let-up in the sustained declines at the Philippine Stock Exchange as the index has fallen for 4 straight sessions. Yesterday's closing is the lowest since April 11's 6,082. Within the 4 days in total, the PSEI has already lost over 202 billion pesos. And taking a look at the peso's weak position, it's also weighed in the local markets, says Japheth Tantiangco of PhilStocks Financial. Investors, he says, have also dealt with the lingering issues over the Philippines' public infrastructure, particularly flood control projects. Mike Ricafort, chief economist at RCBC, says recent political noises and corruption allegations have in part weighed on risk appetites here. As for Jonathan Ravelas, senior advisor of Reyes Tacandong and Company, he says while much of the decline was more driven by America's unpredictable tariff policies, the corruption issue likely triggered a 3% drop in the Philippine Stock Exchange Index in August 18, as investors reacted to what he calls the floodgate. And just taking a look at the technicals here, Ron Acoba of Trading Edge says the anomalies in the flood control projects are, in his words, adding to the negative optics. Technically, the PSEI is exhibiting signs of further potential weakness, as you can see here. That continued decline over 4 straight days following its inability to sustain support at the 62.04 to 62.18 level. Now, this breach may lead to increased selling pressure, potentially driving the index back towards its year-to-date low of 58.22, right about here. So to avert that continued decline, it is essential for the index to recover to the 62.18 level. Let's take a look at the dollar peso levels because that's also recently bounced back above the 57 mark, as you can see right here. On the chart, this recovery driven by its ability to reverse what appeared to be a downward breakout, rallying past the recent low of 56.58. Looking ahead, the exchange rate may begin to consolidate again, says Acoba. And if it manages to break above this 200-day moving average here, as you can see the blue line, cutting across this chart, it could potentially gain further momentum, possibly pushing back toward 58.22 to 58.56 to the dollar. With us now for more is Cristina Ulang, the research head at First Metro Investment Corporation. So good to have you back on. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Cathy. Nice to be here.
Yeah, and at a very critical time, how much of all this weakness in the capital markets is self-inflicted?
You know, we are in a seasonally weak period. This is August. It's ghost month. And then on top of that, we have the MSCI rebalancing where we witness an outflow because we didn't get a country upweight. And so I think this is really very negative on sentiment, and people are a bit cautious and not entering the market in a big way. But I think this is really seasonal, and I think we will come to the point where value investors are going to come in realizing that there's really nothing wrong about Philippine fundamentals. We are growing. GDP is 5.5%, a bit accelerating from first quarter, 5.4. Our peso is not responding anymore in a big way to the yield differential. The peso is stable so far. It's not coming back to like weakening to as high as like 59, 60. We don't have that scenario. Actually, inflation is moving lower, and for the month of August, it's going to be like maybe 1% or a bit lower than that. And the BSP policy continues to be very supportive of the growth outlook for next year.
But Chris,
I think
are
all
the
of these
fundamentals
things are not
really
in the
intact? I
price
mean, we've heard from the finance secretary himself saying that it's losses north of 118 billion pesos to the economy since 2023 because of the flood control project's anomalies. And when you take a look at the markets, there are market watchers out there saying that a big part of it is because of the investigations going on now.
I think if you're going to look at the quantity, if you're going to look at Philippine exports to the US and the impact of US tariffs on Philippine exports, that's about 16 billion worth of Philippine exports to the US, maybe 13 billion worth of exports to the US, and that's going to be slapped by this tariff of like 19%. I think that is an even bigger issue because the impact in relation to GDP, that's about 3% of GDP. When we compare it to this the leakage coming from this flood control, it's not even 1% of GDP. So I think the improvements that are going to be introduced in the government procurement of infrastructure, which includes this one, would be good. Going forward, it's going to improve governance in as far as government procurement. I think we are just at a low point and sentiment is so weak. And we are going to transition into better government procurement standards, accountability, transparency, and efficiency, where there will be more productivity and greater targeted allocation, those that are projects that are going to be more impactful, and of course, greater transparency. So I think
But
we're
as
going
you
to
say, sentiment is weak, and it's apparent out there. It's 4 straight days of a decline, and the peso is also weakening. What sort of an impact is it having in that 1%? You made a mention of 1% of GDP, not very much, but there is that impact. In the equities markets, how are maybe the infrastructures looking? Where is that weakness emanating from?
Well, you know, we are a small market, and every time there are outflows, foreign outflows, reduced foreign participation, the market has been very sensitive because we are very, very small. In the emerging market universe, the local bourse is very sensitive to flows. That's why we need to build up our capital markets. And it's really good to know that we are in a transition, like we have the CEMEPA, Capital Markets Efficiency Promotion Act. And then I think the management of the PSE is going to come up with a revised, improved rules on the REIT. which is going to improve the REIT space, those are qualified to be listing as REITs. So I think I'm looking at the positive things. I think the capital markets is going to transition from where we are to an even bigger one. But that's not going to happen overnight. And then government procurement also is going to be like improving also. So all of these are not in the price. The market is a very low point. And I think it's time for value investors to
All right.
begin revisiting
So
the
there
valuation
is
right
value,
now.
but make us understand first where this weakness is coming from. Is it in infra stocks or is it in the conglos that have infra embedded in them?
Apparently, this is coming from the large stocks because these are the ones being held by the foreign investors, the global passive funds, the global active funds. And when there are movements in the flows, then the large caps are the ones being affected.
Well, it's a small market, as you say. It gives a lot less confidence or, I guess, reason for funds to come in here. But what is a compelling reason to come in here? It's a small market. It gets impacted by a small kind of development, which you characterize what's going on in the anomalies in the flood control projects.
Yeah. So as an investor, I think what investors should be looking at would be the mismatch in as far as the fundamental value of the market and what all of this negative sentiment is doing to the current valuation. So we are now at 9 times PE. It's the cheapest in Asia. But look at our return on equity. Company return on equity is average like 14% on Philippine companies. Our dividend yield is for the 30 company PSA is middle of the pack, 3.3%. Not so bad. And what is not in the price right now, and which is really the source of the mismatch between the fundamental value and the real value of the market, is the growth prospects for next year. Next year, we're seeing like accelerating growth. And that's going to be supported by policy rate cuts. So it's not yet in the price now. So I tend to look at the mismatch between the prospective scenario next year, fundamental, which is very positive compared to where we are now. So that gives the potential for price appreciation. So
Right.
I
That
think
that
the market is not.
mismatch is, to the understanding of many, the reason for maybe the lack of confidence, transparency, or the lack thereof, the lack of governance. What is this costing the Philippines in terms of capital? Could there be a potential capital flight if this were to go on for a longer period of time?
I don't think this is going to lead to capital flight. I think the what is important is really the foreign direct investments, those that are here for the long term. And I think that is based on the fact that we are very supportive of an open economy. We don't have these shifting changes in policies like Trump. That's why you're seeing asset rotation in the U.S., trade diversification in the U.S. But here in the Philippines, we have a stable government, we have a stable regulatory regime. It's just that there are these investigations ongoing. But I think the silver lining is that the government procurement is going to be improving. Next year, given the loopholes that we are now, the lessons that we are learning, I think this is going to elevate the standards of government procurement in terms of the infrastructure. And I think that's the good thing. It's the transition phase. We
All
are
right.
in that period, and there are pains, birth pains, for us to improve. I think, by baptism by fire.
Okay, well, it's good to see beyond the clouds. Thank you so much for your insights, Cristina Ulang of First Metro Investment Corporation.
Sure. Thank you.
Well, you're watching Money Talks. Coming right up. No expected price hike for rice after a ban on imports. And Maynilad is pushing through with its initial public offering next month. The move that analysts say signals investor confidence. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. The Agriculture Department says there is no expected price hike for rice following an import ban. Agriculture spokesperson Arnel de Mesa says there is enough supply. Imported rice is still priced between 42 to 44 pesos. He says, though, the ban took effect Monday. There are still shipments expected to arrive until September 15th. The rice import ban is imposed until October 30th.
For those shipment na nakalabas ng country of origin before the ban started, pwede pa sila makapasok. Ang deadline noon September 15. So pag lumabas sa bansa nila beyond August 31, hindi na rin papayagan yon. So kung darating yun dito, pababalikin lang yan to the country of origin.
And U.S. equities have started September in the red due to a sell-off in government bonds and jitters over President Trump's attempts to reshape the Fed. The Nasdaq led declines yesterday, Tuesday, by 0.8%. S&P 500 retreated by nearly 0.7%, and the Dow fell by over 0.5%. Benchmark 10-year Treasury yields ticked up to 4.276%, and gold prices reached a record of $3,549 per troy ounce. U.S. futures are a mixed bag. When the markets open later tonight Manila time, the Nasdaq is up by nearly 0.25%, S&P by 0.1%, and the Dow falls by 0.1%. As for the Asian markets, it opens mixed today. Australia's ASX slipping by over 0.5%. South Korea's Kospi inching up by less than 0.1%, and Japan's Nikkei 225 falling by 0.3%. And a look at our own markets for a fifth straight session, no let-up in the declines, with the PSEI opening this Wednesday slightly lower by 0.25% to 6,113, still well above the 6,100 level. The stock market declined by nearly 0.2% yesterday, Tuesday, the fourth consecutive session that it fell. Investors digested the downtick in the country's PMI and the corruption issues hovering flood control projects, according to PhilStocks Financial. The broader all-shares index slid by about 0.1%, with the sectoral gauges a mixed bag. As for the Philippine peso, it opens unchanged, still at 57.51 to the dollar. Peso close to its weakest in nearly a month, ending at 57.51 against the greenback. But for MUFG Global Markets Research, the peso is expected to rise to the 56 level in the coming months as investors remain bearish on the U.S. dollar. The 10-year government bond yields has remained unchanged at 6.016%. In corporate news, Maynilad is pushing through with its 45 billion peso initial public offering next month, a move analysts say signals renewed investor confidence in the local market. The water provider plans to list up to 1.66 billion common shares in the PSE by October 30th, with an offer period set for October 16 to 22. Analysts expect strong demand from both institutional and retail investors, calling Maynilad a defensive stock that could boost trading activity in an otherwise sluggish market. Under its franchise, Maynilad is required to float at least 30% of its shares to the public by 2027. Its IPO will be the second this year after Cebu-based fuel retailer Topline Business Development Corporation in April. Maynilad and Signal, the owner of this channel, are both part of the MVP Group. San Miguel Corporation has disbursed over 471 million pesos from its 20 billion peso bond issue to fund the new Manila International Airport in Bulacan. To date, SMC has released nearly 17 billion pesos from the proceeds, leaving a balance of nearly 3 billion pesos. The 740 billion mega airport project spans 2,500 hectares and is designed to handle up to 100 million passengers a year. Commercial opening, however, has been moved to 2028 due to construction delays. Headlines from around the globe. In Afghanistan, the magnitude 6 earthquake that struck its eastern region on Sunday has now claimed the lives of over 1,400 people. The figure provided by the Taliban government spokesman, however, was only for the province of Kunar. The earthquake flattened villages and trapped people under the rubble of their homes made of mud, bricks, and wood. On Tuesday, a magnitude 5.2 aftershock rocked areas near the epicenter of Sunday's quake. The Taliban government is appealing for international aid as Afghanistan is hit by a third major earthquake in 4 years. In China, President Xi Jinping is using a military parade commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II to show its growing power. Xi will be flanked by Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. More than 50,000 people are expected to troop to Tiananmen Square today for the 70-minute parade, which will feature Beijing's cutting-edge military equipment. Xi has been hosting leaders from autocratic nations, as well as that of Southeast and Central Asian countries, in a bid to assert China's role in international affairs. And in the U.S., a district judge ruled that Google must share data with its competitors, but spare the tech giant from breaking up its Chrome browser. In his 223-page ruling, Judge Amit Mehta ordered Google to share some of its search data with qualified competitors to resolve its monopoly. He also placed restrictions in payments that Google uses to get prime placement in web browsers. But the judge stopped short of imposing sweeping changes sought by the U.S. government to rein in over the tech giant. Google plans to appeal the decision, which will prolong the 5-year court battle with authorities. Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation and Japan's Mizuho Bank received the Asian Bankers Award for Best Corporate Trade Finance Deal in the Asia Pacific. The recognition is for their landmark cross-border acquisition of a stake in Indonesia's Trans-Java Toll Road in November 2024. The transaction required a complex, multi-jurisdictional finance arrangement that complied with regulations in both the Philippines and Indonesia. MPTC says the award underscores its growing capability in regional investments and its commitment to improving mobility infrastructure across Southeast Asia. And Maynilad has relaunched its annual Oro Inidoro Awards, honoring the country's best public restrooms. You heard that right, formerly called the Golden Cubeta Awards. The program recognizes facilities that are clean, inclusive, and sustainably managed. This year, it has expanded categories to cover schools, government offices, malls, transport hubs, and even facilities for people with shy bladder syndrome. Maynilad Corporate Marketing Head Rosman Tuazon told The Big Story that they hope to raise awareness in sanitation and encourage establishments to provide safe and inclusive facilities.
At the surface, our mission is, of course, to search for the best, the cleanest, the greenest, the most sustainably managed public restrooms. But just below the surface, we are also pushing our advocacy for proper wastewater management. And that is the wastewater or liquid waste, dumi, wiwi, or kahit anong ginapit na tubig, coming from households, commercial and industrial establishments. It should be properly collected. It should go through treatment and should be properly disposed to our waterways.
Make sure you do flush before you leave. Make sure you do wash your hands. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. Have a great day ahead.